Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and today this is your humble host Amrit Sandhu with the immense pleasure to bring to you Niamh Cronin. Niamh, how are you?
I'm so good, Amrit, and I'm so honored to be here on your podcast and just to connect with you and your amazing tribe. So thanks for having me.
The pleasure's completely ours. For those listening in, we'll find out a lot more about Niamh through this next hour, but just to give you a quick over-the-top sort of high-level synopsis, Niamh's a speaker, she's an avid storyteller, she's a mentor, and she's got this new project going on called AttuneMe, which I cannot wait to dive into, and it's such a blessing to have her here today while this is fresh and bubbling and really coming to the fore. It's all about attunement and bringing people into alignment with their passions and their highest potential and their purpose. Very divine, very existential, coming into the manifest, into the real. So I'm really excited about having a conversation around this. But let's start with where Niamh's at. Niamh's in Byron, right?
I am. I'm here in Byron Bay, the hippie central of Australia. That's what they tell me. But yeah, really nice here. Beautiful sunny day. So enjoying living and being here right now.
It's a really special place. I think we met up there as well, and it was just, it's always like, just the vibe is always so relaxed in Byron, no?
Yeah, it can be at times a little too relaxing. Every now and again, you need to get out of the Byron bubble and come back into the world, you know. And but it's a beautiful place to come and connect to yourself. And it used to be the place where the elders would come and meet, and the idea, it was a meeting place and a place of growth and sharing and transformation. So a lot of people are drawn here for that reason.
And when you say the elders, you mean the Indigenous elders, yeah?
Yes, the Indigenous elders, yeah. So it's a very special place here in Australia for that reason, and I'm still learning more about the Indigenous cultures here. It's so fascinating to me, and there's a lot of my interest is really about connecting to our past, connecting to our ancient roots, and understanding, I guess, how they live, and for me, I guess, coming back to that way of living, which is simplicity, connection to the earth, and understanding our connection to each other.
That's amazing. As we're talking about this, something that I've just triggered me is I remember that we were having this conversation and you shared just how important your connection to your roots has been, and how like that was a whole initiation on a whole nother journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that, your roots and where you're from and where that's all gone?
Yeah, I would love to. I grew up in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And from a very young age, I always questioned my purpose. I always felt like there was a deeper calling or deeper reason why I was here. But I grew up in beautiful family, and my grandfather was really someone who kept that Irish heritage alive. So every Sunday we would come to his house and meet, and we would have a sing-song, a dance, and everyone had to share something, whether it was a poem, a story, or playing
awesome. Yes.
Yeah. And he really kept that Irish culture and heritage alive, that sitting around the fireside, and that idea that we come together in community, that's when the magic happens. And it's something that I grew up and I took for granted. Uh-huh. And then, moved halfway across the world. It took that journey to really realize how important and how special that is. And my grandfather passed away about 12 months ago.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. He's with us in spirit, and he, his passing really ignited that passion again to bring that culture back into society again. And it's not just limited to the Irish culture. I think many of the ancient cultures have a similar practice of coming together and to celebrate, and I guess to share through the art of storytelling, because I feel like every one of us has a story. Every one of us moves through our ups and downs and our challenges in life. but there's certain magic or certain wisdom or hidden gems that we each experience from moving through those challenges. And when we come together and share that with one another, that's when the magic happens, and that's when we can empower and support each other. And that's something that I'm very blessed and grateful to have had in my life, and I want to recreate that now through the work that I'm doing, and to invite others in to create this container.
Oh, you're like, if I was a guitar, you're like strumming my heartstring. It's like, it's all about storytelling and uncovering the wisdom in everyone's story, and finding a way to share that so that we can all enrich each other's lives, because we're all in this tapestry together at the end of the day, not like we are all one. So yeah, that totally resonates. I really appreciate the way you articulated that. That was amazing. Thank you so much. And so, yeah, because I remember you saying, like, when you first came to Australia, you were in a very different position. No, you were working for a corporate, doing really well actually, working for corporate, and fully flexing your abilities and your full potential in that machine, and the way that it can be. And then there was definitely a shift, because obviously the Niamh we see today with helping people guiding to their highest potential is more of a consultant, more of a speaker, more of a coach, right? So. What prompted that, and what's the journey through there? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember our roots and to remember where we came from. And for me, I was always very driven and very academic, very focused. And when I moved to Australia, I was hired by one of the top 500 or Fortune 500 companies here in Australia, and I was managing a software division with a lot of responsibility. And I absolutely loved feeling like I had a purpose, and managing a team. And but there was something not right. My soul was really calling me forth to listen. Because I wasn't living in balance, I wasn't living in connection. For me, I have a tendency to have this, it's all or nothing, like many of us do.
Yeah.
And we dive head first, and we put everything into our work or our passion. So it was actually
often to our own detriment now. Yeah.
Often to our own detriment, and it was. So I'm 31 now. It was when I was 27. I crashed and burned, and I found myself in a cardiac ward.
Whoa.
And that was, for me, I believe that we get subtle signs, subtle whispers asking us to slow down, asking us to take heed of the path that we're taking. And I wasn't listening, and that was the smack in the face. So when you don't listen, sometimes in life certain things happen, and if we have the eyes to see it, then we can witness and experience that experience as a lesson. And for me, it was a really big lesson, and I realized that I was really living out of balance. I really wasn't listening to my inner voice, and that a time was coming where I was being asked to live in more alignment with my soul. And there were certain things in my life that were no longer aligned. I was living the high life in Sydney, partying 3 or 4 nights a week, being Irish. I was no stranger to alcohol. And look, I think everything in moderation, alcohol or any fun, but I think it's important that we become aware of whether or not these things are really honoring and servicing our health, our well-being, and most importantly, if it's hindering us from truly living in connection with our true human potential. And I think we're going to really dive into what our true human potential is. But for me, I certainly wasn't living to my true potential, and so crash and burn. Went through, I guess, I started to to question a lot of areas of my life. Certain relationships, my health. I started to slow down and introducing things like meditation and mindfulness and many of these other practices, which allowed me to feel more connected to self.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I guess I started to have a tangible experience of who I was and what I wanted to create in the world, what connect to a message that I wanted to bring through. And I think many people, we can all go through these awakenings or these, periods in life where we have an expanded awareness. And that for me was this time. So I decided to quit my corporate career, something that was not an easy decision.
Yeah.
And to pursue a career in mentoring and coaching other people. And so during that time, I studied many different coaching modalities. I became a certified NLP practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And during my work with people, I realized that there was so much more to who we are as human beings than what meets the eye.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's such a deep story, and there's so much about awakening in that. And you touched on it, this idea of human potential and there being so much more than what just meets the eye, and it's not a small sort of feat that you because human potential is borderline infinite, and so guiding people into that space is I'm sourcing infinite inspiration from that and the work that you're doing. So I'd love to hear more about just what human potential is to you, how your work has been informed, and what is I think I'll ask it what is AttuneMe after, but let's have a chat about human potential.
Yeah, and I guess everything I share is from my own perception, and I'm seeing life through my lens. So feel free to try it on, and if it doesn't resonate, then that's okay. Take what you leave, or take what you need and leave the rest. That's because we're all here, seeing and experiencing life from a very unique viewpoint. Okay,
mm-hmm.
So for me, I've always been fascinated with what is possible, what as a human race, what we can achieve when we're truly connected. And we hear lots of stories of some of these amazing, great people in the past that like take an example, looking at Einstein and some of the incredible things that he has brought through and incredible inventions. And he often talked about being tapped into this greater source of creativity, or this greater source of intelligence. And we hear about, if we look at Leonardo da Vinci and some of the incredible work that has come through many of these different people in many different times. And even in today's world, we hear of athletes reaching a state of pure flow. They talk about this moment where time stands still, and when everything aligns, so they're breathing, their body is functioning at an optimum level, their mind, everything is moving in flow. And I believe that the body, this physical body, that we have yet to really discover and remember the potential of who we are and what we can create. And I feel like up until now, a lot of focus has been on mindset, right? Which is great.
Yep.
It's really like, okay, the power of the mind. There's so many books out there about the power of our thoughts and the power of our mindset and how we can really create our reality. But that's just one part of who we are. And a lot of my work has led me to understanding that our body is a source of infinite intelligence.
Yeah, super wise.
And we are about to unearth and unearth and discover that if we give ourselves the opportunity to.
Wow. So guiding people to their purpose through their understanding of their body. Is that wow. Wow. I definitely resonate with that. My personal experience reflects that, there are messages, and, in the coaching practice now, it's like people often come because they're burning out, similar to the situation you described earlier. And we talk often about stress. There's a lot of talk about stress because I guess my primary modality of guiding people is through meditation. And I celebrate stress, and it's kind of nuts. But it's like, stress is doing what I want to do for you, Stress is calling you to change.
Yes.
And that's your body's communication trying to reach out and be like, hey, listen. And I think that's where, I'm sure you'd be familiar with like people finding dis-ease as they don't listen and that sort of stuff. What do you think it is that people, why do we not listen to our bodies, in your opinion? Why do we not listen to the signals and the messages that consistently do come through?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think we've been programmed to look at disease and imbalance in a different way. And, when we feel any sort of illness or disease, the first thing that we're going to do is to heal the symptom, right? What's starting to happen is people are starting to understand that there's an underlying cause or trigger to that disease. And I think the more and more we begin to look at our body as an intuitive instrument, it's a communication tool. So our body has the ability to feel and sense and connect to many different things. And just like if you eat something, use the analogy, right? If you eat something that is bad or gone off, then your body reacts to that, right? It's the same thing with an emotion, or maybe there's a wound that we have, an unresolved wound since childhood that we're still processing unconsciously. The body is still aware of that. We might not be consciously aware of it, but our body is aware of everything that it comes into connection with at any given time. And if we first and foremost, again, I guess, start to see our body as a communication tool and work with it rather than against it. I know for myself, I had such a negative relationship with my body. I was chronically sick in my teenage years. I suffered with anxiety and depression, but I was also riddled with chronic disease, and I was always going in and out to my doctor with chronic fatigue and all sorts of other illnesses, and never fully getting to the bottom of it. So I as a result developed a very negative relationship with my body. I believed it wasn't serving me because I was always sick. I never had enough energy.
So it became your support.
And I felt so disconnected from it. But everything shifted for me when I realized actually my body is working with me. My body is trying to communicate with me. And particularly as in for people, and some people might be listening and I certainly didn't know, but naturally I'm an intuitive empath. And an intuitive empath is someone who has a high level of sensitivity, right? So that could be even sensitivity to food, sensitivity to light, sensitivity to noise, but also sensitivity to emotion and to energy. And my body was very sensitive to so many things and was picking up on these things as information, but I didn't have the awareness to intuit what that information was.
Yeah, the hardware was going, but the software needed to be installed almost.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy.
Yeah, amazing. Yes. Makes total sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. There was somewhere I wanted to go, but there was something you touched on that I really can't walk past, which is the negative self-talk, because I think we all sort of everybody has that in some way, fashion, shape, or manner, especially when it comes to their relationship with their body. And it's such a major milestone. It's something that I guess, consistently I've been working on personally as well. But I know that I remember like 3-4 years ago, it was definitely something that was it was incessant. Consistently people having these negative relationships with their bodies and just their appearance. And it's always this nagging voice of not being enough, which is always quite debilitating, in need of a better way of putting it. And I'm not surprised with all the illnesses that people then manifest out of that. So the idea of communication and the body being like like basically an expression of something, is that something that you're alluding to, kind of the higher potential? Or
I think for us to truly tap into our true potential, it's a journey in connecting more to our body, and that's, I think, the first step. I think, there's so many different teachings out there, and we're all on a journey of learning and discovering what feels right. And for a long time, for me, I was seeking to discern, this process of self-realization, self-actualization. And there's so many books and theories about, that we're awakening and that, we're ascending into a higher consciousness. And while some of that resonated, my personal journey has been that of coming back into the body and that of being more human than ever before, and understanding that everything that I am seeking is here, and that it is an illusion that I am not already whole, and it is an illusion that I am not already worthy. And it is the seeking to be worthy and the seeking to be whole is what's keeping us trapped and stuck. And the only thing that felt congruent to me was realizing that I am whole, I am complete, and that the tools that I need to navigate life are right here.
Yeah.
The breath, right? The breath, our mind, our heart, our soul. And that even if we feel that we don't really know or have the tools, it is here. And it's a process of trusting and allowing that to come through when the time is right. And what I love about your work, Amrit, is you really focus on meditation, which is for me was a huge part of my journey. I'm someone who suffered with anxiety, panic attacks. It was a huge journey for me to connect to the breath.
Yeah.
And to trust that it is the breath that carries life, and it is the breath that connects us to what is real. So, we know this, from, when we're in a state of fight or flight, and when we're in a state of panic, what happens is it triggers a part of the brain. So we actually cannot even function or think clearly, right? Because scientifically, we are in a place right now where it's life or death. And we're operating and responding to life as if it's life or death. So our cognitive ability is blocked. And from learning that, from working with the breath, that just by connecting to a tool that is innately within us, connecting to something so simple, so practical, we can actually shift our reality in that moment, right?
Totally.
And really allow, we're so connected to our body, and I think communication with our body, that I am safe, using the breath as a tool to allow the body to relax, and then move into a place where you can intuit, okay, what is actually happening here? Is this actually real? Is this a projection of my fears? Or maybe it is real, but okay, how can I respond to that? Not out of fear, but respond from a place of love, respond from a place of connection, from a place of being grounded and centered. And that can only happen by working with the body.
I love it. It's mine and my I was actually just mentioning this just before with someone, and the one thing I've discovered, that the truth is always simple, and if it gets complicated, it's not the truth. And I love how just the simplicity of what you're sharing and the depth that it contains. And I know that on the podcast right now it may sound overly simple, but I'm aware that message is so potent, especially when you consider the context that you're holding that message for. Because breathing and just connecting to your breath and your body and slowing down to acknowledge the messages that are coming from there. When we're listening to two people talk, it's maybe easier to just be like, oh, yep, that's something that makes sense. But when you walk into, let's say, like, a networking event and there's thousands of people, that's when the voice goes, I get what she was talking about. Your body's just like, what's all these sensations and all this craziness? And look, I've had moments which as you were saying, I was almost transported back to a moment where one of these times I walked into a supermarket, and it was like I think I'd just been in Brazil I'd been in the jungle on a retreat for maybe a month, and I came back and I went to a supermarket and I was looking at all these products on the aisles, and I couldn't really compute all the packaging that was coming at me, and I'm generally a pretty grounded person, but it was really interesting because I could feel the anxiety just pouring off the walls. Like it was all these airbrushed, picture perfect images of just not even people at this point, right? It's just packaging. And I could just feel the sensation in my body and it was this really intense process. And it was like, wow, I wonder if this is something that I experience every day, but I just don't tune into it.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yes. I absolutely love your analogies because I think it's really important. But I feel that we are emitters and receivers. And imagine that we all love stories, right? We all love using our imagination. So let's use our imagination for a second and imagine we are these biocomputers and that we're walking through this earth and that we are emitting and receiving energy in any given moment. And in that moment, you walk into the supermarket and your system, your body is being bombarded with all this information, all these bright colors and all these different products. And the body, while sometimes we're not conscious of it, is intuiting this information and sifting and sorting through what it needs. But it's also taking on information that we're unconsciously aware of. And what I feel is the more we connect to our body, the more conscious we become of the information that we're receiving. And we will begin to learn what to do with that information. Now, information can come in any forms, right? One, we see color, we see light, we see, so we're visually taking in information, we're auditorily taking in information, we're kinesthetic, so that means we feel. So we're also feeling emotions. Right, so we're feeling our own emotions, we're also feeling other people's emotions, which gives us the ability to connect deeper in relationships with others. And then we're feeling the collective emotion, like what's happening collectively in the world. And then, of course, don't forget touch, right? We're constantly, every time we pick something up, we have a feeling of what that feels like. And then, we talk about there's many different senses, but, then maybe there's your sixth sense. So there's this, or an energetic information.
Yeah.
And I feel that there's something really magical happening in the world right now. And I feel that people are becoming more sensitive in a good way. Now, it can be interpreted as negative because there's more anxiety, more stress. But what if we turn that on its head for just one moment and looked at it through a different lens and realized, what if we're just becoming more tuned, more sensitive and aware to the information that is available to us? Now, if we put that spin on it, we wouldn't approach stress, anxiety, panic, or overwhelm through the same lens that we have been, right? We would look at it as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, as a call to holistic living.
Exactly. And this is what AttuneMe is, right? And we'll get to that in a second. But I believe that we, look, if you read many of the ancient texts, which some of you might be curious about, or if you work with any of, go back and work with indigenous cultures, they talk about, the fundamentals that govern life here on this plane. And, it's based on polarity. So, for example, for us to experience love, we must experience fear. For there to be light, there must be dark, right? And there's this constant ebb and flow. So as humans, we're constantly ebbing and flowing in and out of balance, right? Attunement is the process of coming back into harmony. So it's finding that midpoint. So when we take a breath, it's that moment between the breath that there's stillness, right? It's the moment between that breath where we can integrate both aspects of what we're feeling. So we can feel the love, but we can feel the fear. Attunement is the coming back into harmony and synchronization with yourself, your whole self. Now, we're only scratching the surface here.
I know, and I'm already loving it. Yeah. So, you mentioned this as well. So I feel like this has something to do with it. But attunement, and you talked about becoming more and more sensitive. So that sensitivity and our attunement. What role does your sensitivity? I think we spoke about it, obviously, the call to holistic living, but then how do you is attunement, does it involve cultivating our sensitivity?
Exactly, and I love that you use that word, cultivating. For me, it has been about cultivating and understanding the many layers of our sensitivity, and developing tools and different practical ways in which we can begin to manage them. And this is not about suppressing, because, when we traditionally think of anxiety or stress, the first thing is we just want to push it to one side and get on with life. It's a nuisance. It's a hindrance. But looking at it through this new lens, it's like, okay, wow, this is a new level of sensitivity for me. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure what my body is trying to compute here, and it's overwhelming. But let's learn some practical tools so that I can learn how to go into the body and intuit what's going on right now. How can I work with this to support my own growth and my understanding of myself, and understanding of others and of this world. And so the process of attunement, it's multifaceted, but the first layer is, one, becoming aware of our body and our level of sensitivity. So there's our physical sensitivity, which is normally the last one to be triggered. So this is your physical body. Then there's your emotional body, your mental body, and your energetic body, if you want to call it. People have many different words for it. And it's about becoming aware of the different levels of sensitivity and how we receive and pick up and intuit information. So that's the first thing. And then honoring the body as a source of intelligence. There's a lot of, for me, I kind of got trapped in giving more power away to, I guess, my spiritual aspect of self.
Yep.
And what I found is that it served up until the time, but it was also a distraction from embracing my true human experience. So for me, it's about honoring the body as a unique, infinite source of intelligence. When we do that, we actually give permission for the body to teach us, to reveal more layers to us. And I guide people through certain tools that they can use each and every day. They're simple, they're practical, and they're powerful. And what I feel it will do is, and what it has done for myself, is to help me to navigate and integrate my level of sensitivity as I become more self-aware. What we will see happen is a lot more people becoming more and more sensitive, and particularly now because we're just being bombarded with so much information, especially with technology and movies and TV programs and social media.
Yeah.
So much coming at us.
It's intense.
Yeah, and we also need to cultivate the ability and the tool of discernment to feel into what serves our path, what serves our body, what serves and allows us to live in alignment with our true potential, and what doesn't. And this is the path of really removing these threads, or these things that have been keeping us stuck and keeping us from flowing. And that ebb and flow, we talked about that earlier, that's our natural state. So it's not about running away from sadness and fear and pain and the stuff that we normally like to hide and push down. It's about feeling the extremities, but not getting stuck.
So I guess and I think we're curious now, as we've been from the outset. There was something you touched on there that I will come back to, but the idea that so that step one is coming into your breath and then tuning yourself into your body, and obviously you said there are a myriad of ways of reconnecting back into your body, and I think the next logical question for me to ask is then, how does connection to your body, how does that transmute into, or manifest, or transform, or communicate, I guess express itself into me living my highest potential? Like me connecting to my body is quite simple and, again, amazing. Value that lesson. But then how does that, in your words and through AttuneMe, how does that reflect the living of the highest potential of the individual?
Okay, so there's so many ways to answer this, but I think what we're missing is true direct experience of who we are. Okay, and my the last couple of years of my own personal journey and the work that I've been doing is I've been seeking out direct experience of what it feels like to be truly connected, to be in flow, and what that state actually feels like. We actually can try and think about what that would feel like, but nothing can replace a direct experience. So I have created a process to act as a bridge. This process that I do through my one-on-one AttuneMe sessions, I work with specific tools that are not new, but have been known about for hundreds and thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And they are tools that can be found in nature. And this is where a lot of my clients come in very skeptical, and not entirely sure of what they're going to experience. But I work with knowing and understanding that everything is energy. Mm-hmm. I work with crystals, and I work with the breath, and I work with aromatic essences, all which are frequencies and energies taken directly from the earth. But by working with them in a one-on-one setting, I've created a process which guides people into a very peaceful, centered state. Now, some people will talk about, refer to it as a theta state. I like to refer to it as a dreamlike state, that state where you are in between awake and asleep.
Yep.
Okay. Now, using this meditative process, I guide people into this state, and in that place, they have a direct experience of feeling their body. When they're in that state, they have a tangible, direct experience of feeling specific tightness, emotion, trapped and stagnant energy in their body, and I guide them through the process of how to, while they're in that state, how to intuit information from the body. Once, so there's 3 steps to that process. The first step is actually connecting to some of this information or some of this trapped energy or stored information that's waiting to be unlocked. And in that process, it's about releasing anything that is no longer serving the body, listening and communicating to why that's there and whether or not it serves you anymore. Then what happens is, once that is released, the client experiences a connection to themselves at a level that some people have never experienced before. And it is, for some people, it's a very blissful, serene, really grounded feeling of being in the body, but also the ability to ask and intuit questions to themselves and receive guidance and information that only they can receive from here.
Yeah.
And in that process, I call it like, it's almost like the soul really can be witnessed and experienced. And then we go through an attunement, which is really attuning the energy body, so the mental, physical, emotional, and energetic body, so that it can be anchored, and that person can walk away from that session with a tangible, direct experience of what it feels like to be connected to soul. Now, some of you might be listening and thinking, wow, this sounds really out there, this sounds really crazy. And what I ask is that, to some, yeah, maybe it is. But when you have a tangible, direct experience of who you are, there is no one can take that away from you.
Yeah, you can't refute it.
You cannot refute it. And this is not about using any external stimulus. This is about using the tools that you have, such as the body, the breath, and
smell, yeah,
working with nature. Mm-hmm. And the elements of nature to come back into harmony. This is it's not a process, like I said, it's not new. This has been around for a long time, and many tribes and cultures know the importance of this and about creating a practice each and every day. Mm-hmm. So what I find is when people have a tangible, direct experience, then it's about creating a space where I can teach them the practical tools to come back into that state themselves in any given moment.
Yep. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. There's two things that I really wanted to touch on in there, and then I'm in awe of it. Primarily because a big part of what meditation for me, once it gets past mental management and stress management and that sort of stuff, it opens yourself up to having, after a while, these intuitive insights coming through, and this dialogue with yourself through meditation. But is it a long process? I've been meditating for many, many years. And so when you're sharing that, it makes a lot of sense, because it feels like, yes, definitely something that, I used to say this for myself, that, 1 in every 5 meditations that I'd sit, it would almost be like, oh, I get to download a little bit of wisdom. But I'd have to put in the work for all the other sittings to finally download that. But from what I'm gathering and what I'm hearing, it seems like you've found the AttuneMe method is to kind of curate that experience and really allow someone to drop in without them having to sit again and again and again. You're dropping them into a state where they can actually, and then helping them and guiding them and integrate that.
Yes.
Them be sitting at home and, hoping and praying and finding a way, which is my way. Yeah. And,
yes.
And I love the direct experience. I'm a massive believer that knowledge is powerful, but wisdom is just knowledge that has experience behind it, and that for me is the definition of wisdom. So I find I'm really inspired by what you're doing, and that's really, really profound. And I sort of want to come along and experience a shift.
I know, right?
I'm sort of on the edge of my seat about it now. But one thing that you talked to before, and this may not be the perfect segue to go into it, but I feel like it kind of is you mentioned that you mentioned this sixth sense. And I know I've only got a limited time with you, so I really want to touch on this before time runs out for sure. Is that this idea of a sixth sense, because you've obviously intuited this this protocol with the AttuneMe, and obviously there's, as you mentioned, it's familiar to a lot of ancient cultures, and you're just holding space for that wisdom to be reintegrated into society so people can heal. I think heal's probably the right word with all the stress and stuff. But this sixth sense, I think people that first meet you, if I may project a little bit, sorry, get this real sense of your intuition. And I think it's something that, at the risk of dissociating masculine from feminine, I've often had a laugh with my girlfriend that, she's got, her sixth sense is actually a sense, and she's working on a seventh, while I'm actually working on a sixth for intuition. Can we have a little bit of a conversation around that? Because I know you've spent a lot of time, championing the importance of feminine energy, and the new. There's a whole new paradigm being birthed, but that's probably if we want to share about that. But, But I know, just like the sixth sense and the feminine's relationship to sensing.
Yeah. Oh, this, I believe our intuition is our superpower, and it is the journey of activating our true human potential. And I think it can be felt at times that women have a natural intuitive ability, and men are like, how come I can't switch that on? What's wrong with me? What's going on? And I feel that it doesn't matter if we're masculine or feminine, we have an innate intuitive ability that can be activated. However, it needs to be done through the body and through feeling. Now, for some women, they might be naturally connected to their feeling senses, and it might seem to come a lot more easy to them. And what I'm witnessing and experiencing in men is that men are becoming so in touch with their feelings that they're beginning to really activate their intuitive abilities. But what I see coming up, because I've been working, I worked with a lot of men and women, then I spent a lot of time working with women, and now what's happening is I seem to be attracting and calling in more and more men, because the link that's missing I'm not generalizing here, but I'm just sharing what I'm witnessing with the men that I'm working with right now is their trust. So they're feeling, they're getting a deeper sense of knowing about things in their life. And the missing link is them just trusting it. Because it's different, it's new. And I think traditionally men would go to women, even in the tribes, and they'd ask the women for their guidance on where should we go hunting today, and the women would sit and they'd connect and they'd say, okay, I think you need to go over here, and the men would go out hunting. Now, while that is, has been a natural way of the masculine and feminine for some time, we're entering into a new era. And now men are integrating their feminine because their intuition is that feminine, introvert, feeling sense. And also the women are integrating their masculine abilities, right? And so there's this beautiful, there's something really beautiful happening right now. And we have to start trusting. We have to start trusting our feelings, even if it doesn't make logical sense, because we can be very much in our logic mind. But, if you walk into a room, I used to, and this is what used to happen to me. I would walk into a room, and for some reason, I would be like, I do not want to walk over there, right? And there might be specific people in that corner of the room. And then I would beat myself up thinking I was judging, or why am I feeling this?
Mm-hmm.
Or I was...
why am I being so critical?
Why am I being critical? And sometimes I wouldn't even have a logical reason. I would try and come up with a reason as to why I don't want to be in that part of the room. What I've learned just through my own set of experiences is that sometimes there doesn't need to be a logical reason. Right? You just need to trust it. And maybe it might be that your presence and your energy is just not in resonance to be in that part of the room right now. And maybe it's nothing to do with you. It might even be for the greater good of those people in that corner of the room. Mm-hmm. And, someone told me the story of Edgar Cayence. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but he was someone who was ahead of his time, and he's written a lot of books about many, many amazing things. But one story was that he was in a building and he stepped into a lift, right? And he was a intuitive empath. He stepped into a lift and he just took one look around at the people and he stepped back out, just instantly trusted. He didn't know why, he just stepped back out of the lift. Mm-hmm. The doors closed and the lift plummeted to the ground. And people asked him, what was it? And he said he just knew. He didn't actually have to even think about it, but something told him, you're not meant to be in this lift. Okay?
Yeah.
Now that's obviously an extreme scenario, but he talked about, and he goes a little bit further into that in understanding that those souls had already chosen to pass over, and when he came into the lift, he actually picked up on that their souls had already departed, and he knew in that moment that he was not meant to depart, and he stepped out of the lift. They're just that's an extreme example, but sometimes there are reasons why we feel certain things, and if we don't trust them and we don't listen, we don't honor the body, start honoring our feelings.
Yep.
We'll begin to live, people talk about living in flow. You can't live in flow unless you trust your intuition. Mm-hmm. You can't experience what that is unless you trust. It might be, I'm not going to get this bus. I'm going to wait for the next bus. Because I don't know why. You get on the next bus and you meet your next boyfriend or girlfriend. Or you happen to meet someone who's got a job opportunity for you. that wouldn't happen unless you trusted that little feeling.
Yeah. It's amazing. I'm not sure if we have enough time for it, but I really want to share this story, so I'm going to create the time. I hope you don't have to rush off and don't mind me going here. But I literally got back 2 weeks ago from Brazil again. It's my favorite place to travel to. So all the stories seem to be about there. But I think this is a really fitting place to drop this in here is, firstly, thank you for sharing what you're sharing, because trust is definitely something that I'm working on at the moment as well. And exactly what you explained is totally what's happening for me. It's learning to trust my intuition, learning to trust that everything is panning out as according to some greater good, and the one mantra that's been helping me through it is that I seem to have made it these last 27 years. I'm sure I can make it the next. But it's like, just trust. And the story I want to share is so when I wasn't going to Brazil at all, actually. And my girlfriend had flights to go on Sunday. And on Monday, she turned around to me and she goes, "Go get your visa." And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Go get your visa." And I'm like, "For what?" She's like, "Brazil." And I'm like, "Wait, you've got tickets, you've got a visa, you're flying to Brazil. I'm not going to Brazil. Like I'm working on all these projects. The podcast is thriving. The coaching's thriving. The meditation for corporates is thriving. I'm really going to buckle down this next month that you're away, and I've got all these projects to really bring to a head. It's going really well." And she's just like, "Go get your visa." And after a while, you just surrender. It's just like, okay, it'll take me an hour to go get my visa, photograph and all that taken, rather than having, to butt up against my beloved's energy all day. It's like, okay, I'll just go get the visa. So I go up and get my visa, apply for it online. And it's a 2-week process. So she's going for a month. And, the idea in the back of my head is like, okay, maybe this works out and maybe I get all my work done in a couple of weeks and I can go for the second 2 weeks or something. And on Friday, she turns around and she goes, "You should check on your visa." And so I called them up, and it's a 2-week process to get your visa, 10 working days, 2 weeks. And I call them up and I'm like, "Hey, I've applied for this visa. What's the go?" And they're like, "It takes 2 weeks. You're kind of wasting your time. Don't know why you called." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I just figured I'd check." And she's like, "Yeah, fair enough. Well, give me your passport number." And I give her my passport number and she goes, "Oh, this never happens, but you should check your email." And I check my email and they've sent me an electronic visa. And I woke up that morning, and I didn't ask for this. When I woke up that morning, the voice in my head, the first voice that came to my head was like, if I get a visa today to go to Brazil, I'll take that as a sign. And I don't know where that voice came from. I don't know why my partner was so insistent on me getting a visa on Monday. All I knew that was on Friday, around midday, I had a visa. And there was something that told me that it was a sign. And I was like, okay, so this is a sign. Then we started looking at flights. And prior to my girlfriend, she was looking previously for flights to see if, she really wanted me to come. And I was just like, it's not fitting, because there was no flights that got there in a reasonable amount of time. They're all really long and really expensive. And because it was last minute. As soon as I got my visa, her tickets were fully booked out. Her flight path was completely booked out. All 4 steps of the journey from here to Santiago to Rio back. As soon as we got our visa, she jumps on, checks her flight. 2 tickets on each of the flights, right, that she's booking. And one is in a random spot all over the plane in each of the steps. And one seat is right next to her. Every flight, 4 flights, 2 seats on 4 flights. One scattered and one right next to her on every single step of the way. 2 days before the flight takes off, right? And at that point, I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, you just look at it and it's like, okay, I surrender. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I guess I'll go. And, for me, that's me learning, to trust. it was amazing. You know, I had the most incredible month. I learned music, but that's a whole nother story. But that was the story, right? And for me, that's why I ask about the feminine and the intuition, because I've learnt that even if I'm still in the process of cultivating what I call my sixth sense, my partner's seventh sense.
Yeah.
When she's like, go get your visa, it's like, in my head, it's like, stop it. Like, you know, like there is no reason that there is literally no logic, no reason. And I cannot be supported by my mental capacity to go function in that. But except for like now, it's like, okay, she has her reasons beyond reasoning. And it's her intuitive process, and that was kind of like the premise for why I asked this question about the feminine and the intuition, and then the work that you do, obviously, because I know how much that feminine and the intuition weaves into the magic that you weave with all your offerings. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that. And
I love that you share, because it's the art of storytelling that. Where we can really begin to create more connection and understanding around some of these topics. So I absolutely love that you shared that story and just your process of really trusting and allowing it, because you know how many people would be like, yeah, right, I'm not getting my visa. What do you want about? But you were open, you know, and as you were talking, I think one of the biggest lies that we have been told is that, like, we actually have a belief that it's not possible, that we don't have a sixth sense. Like that in itself is blocking. But if we can shift that and actually go, I believe I can activate my true human potential. I believe that I can connect to my intuitive abilities. I believe I can connect to my body and have a deeper sense of awareness. That in itself will open up so much. Yep. And then all that you're left to do is just trust. So the gaps in between is trust.
That's a really powerful message. And I can tell that I've kept you a little bit longer than I promised.
No, you could probably spend all day.
Yes.
jamming here all day.
This episode is going to be cut into 24 part. No,
part 1 of 20.
So, okay, if I do have a little bit more of your time, just before I start closing up, then I'll ask you a question that raised a flag for me, which was, you mentioned this, and it was spirituality as a distraction, which was, I hope the listeners can take that in the right light, and not, we both try and honor sacred as much as we can. But I think the time when you mentioned it, it was about, us having 4 dimensions, easy to access dimensions to ourselves, that we can identify the intellectual, the emotional, and the energetic, as well as the physical. And you mentioned that there was perhaps the energetic and the spiritual can be a distraction at times, and you're actually here to embody your wisdom. Can you talk to that just a little bit before I tie it out?
Yeah, sure. And I guess everything is in moderation. And I used to spend a lot of my time wanting to experience my spiritual nature. And my personal journey is that it was distracting me from being human, and it was disconnecting me from being here. And I started to reestablish my time and my energy into also honoring the physical just as much as the spiritual. And that has been my own journey. And the more that I have began to honor the body and my physical experience, my spiritual side has come online so much more. And, I guess really we are spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience. Yeah. And if we're not careful, sometimes we think we're human beings having a spiritual experience and the other way around. And I guess I was just shedding that light on it, because that was the trap I fell into.
Yep.
But we're all going through this process in our own unique way. Some people are really present in their body. They're really connected to their human experience, and maybe part of their journey is exploring their spiritual and intuitive side. And then For others, it could be the opposite. It's about grounding, connecting back here to the earth and tapping into their body. So it just depends on where we're at. But I think that ebb and flow, just think of that infinity symbol. That's how we want to be.
I love it.
Yeah.
And through all of that, I can just hear attunement. It's so good. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the work you're doing. So coming into the closing questions, I know a lot of your wisdom is about being pragmatic and learning from the self and going within, which I absolutely adore. But is there a book that is just an outstanding book in your opinion that you've received a lot from?
It's an interesting question. There was one book which definitely challenged a lot of things for me, but it definitely played a huge role in my own discernment and my own expansion and awareness, and that was Our Universal Journey by George Kavassilis.
Okay.
But it definitely is one that really forced me to ignite my own discernment. And really start questioning things, and that began my journey of really discerning what felt true to me. So that's definitely one book. I definitely have become, and this could be, me experiencing, this could be my shadow right now, but what I'm experiencing right now is that I'm not reading as many books as I used to, and I'm choosing to spend that time in nature, connecting to myself. And so when people ask me this question right now, I'm like, well, right now I'm not actually reading anything, but that could change tomorrow.
For sure.
Right? But there's definitely a shift that I've experienced within myself where I'm seeking to connect and discern through my own challenges, first and foremost from here, and then seeking out maybe a book or a mentor or someone who can facilitate the space so I can go deeper within into that. Even more. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That totally resonates. Thank you for sharing that process. That's a really beautiful process. And then second to last, if you had the opportunity to set up a billboard in Times Square, New York, and it was the Niamh billboard, it could say anything it wanted to. It was your message to Times Square, New York. And you got to think about that energy in Times Square, New York. Wow. What would you broadcast? What would your billboard say?
What's coming to me right now, this is where you just have to trust it, is, do you know how powerful you are?
Nice.
Love it. Just a question mark. Yeah.
Love it. Let's make that billboard. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really beautiful. So finally, and by no means least, it's my favorite question, and it's always the last question of every episode of The Inspired Evolution. And it goes a little something like this. It's, so Niamh, who are you beyond your story, beyond the name? It's esoteric in its nature. Who are you?
Mm-hmm. Really, I'm an expression of the whole, experiencing myself uniquely in the physicality, and I've come here to experience the whole and to experience infinite expressions of life. And yeah, that's, if I can break it down, that's who I am at my infinite nature.
I love it. That is so poetic. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got to do the due diligence for those that want to get in touch with you, which, what's the easiest way for us to do that? I know you've got a website.
Yep. Yeah, so the easiest way is through my website, which is Niamh Cronin, and I think maybe Amrit, you might put it in the show
notes because it can be quite confusing. Niamh is spelled Niamh. That's right.
That's
Niamh
right, yeah.
is Niamh. Go figure that one out.
Yeah, so it's, go check the show notes for the link to my website, where you'll be able to connect with me there, or feel free to connect with me through social media on Facebook and on Instagram. And lately, I'm all about really having more fun and play in my life. And I'm finding that I'm really having lots of fun on Instagram. So come and hang with me there and follow my stories as I bring you on my journey. That's called life. And we just need, I think, and that's creating more connection with each other. So come and hang out with me there too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time here today, Niamh. I have to say, just with all the work that you do, just like there's the work that you do, but also just the presence that you bring, like me and my partner both have a massive space for you. Whenever we think about you, it's like we light up, it's like, Niamh. And it's because just the vibe that you bring into a space and just the consciousness that you hold and just, that you're always mindful, you're always present, you're always kind. It's just this beautiful frequency that you impart on other people in the space that you share. So for all that you hold, but also all the work that you're now doing with all of that as well. And the AttuneMe sounds really a blessing for people to tune into. And thank you so much for taking the time to share that today. And I used to say that the human journey is a journey, but I'm not sure anymore because through some of the podcasts, it's all become like this eternal now, maybe. I don't know what the answer is. But this mystery, whatever this mystery is, Kay and I both wish you absolutely the best every step of the way, and it's such a blessing to be connected to you. And so we really just want to wish you all the best on your eternal now and the mystery.
Thank you. And I just want to say, how much love and gratitude I have for both of you, and just witnessing you step into your work and creating this podcast and everything that you guys are doing. It's so inspiring. The inspired evolution.
Thank you so much.